guys, the Tua talk is still hot and heavy, whether they should let him run on the fifth or give him the big contract. And people all over are making their estimations, me included, you included, everywhere. And I don't think we really understand what this kid can be until certain things are put in play. But I want to do a comparison, a real deep comparison of Brady and Tua. And it's not to say Tua's better than Brady. That's not what I'm here to say. But what I want to get you to understand, because there's a lot of people that cover the Dolphins that just don't understand things. There's a lot of people that do, but there's some people out there who don't really understand concept, philosophy, and scheme, and why these things are put into use. What's the rationale behind it? And I'm going to track Brady from his 2020 Super Bowl win, then 22 and 21 when he retires, and you're going to see a trend, a very interesting trend that's going to help you reflect on Tua. Again, it's not to say this kid is the best thing. We should give him the $55 million every 5 minutes for the rest of his life type contract. It's to show you that you cannot say because Tua throws fast, he's not capable. And they're doing this first read stuff because he's not capable. They're getting it out quick because he's not capable. Because you're going to see a parallel in the schemes and the philosophies and the reasons why they're being used from both sides. And it's going to be not about the offensive line. It's not going to be about Tua. It's going to be about the two of them together and how the two of them together drive the OC for philosophies, concepts, and schemes. It's not going to be highbrow. You're going to see very clear statistics that I put together. I want to thank Scott. He comes on the lives, and he's like my statistician guy, and he gave me some stats when I was sick, and I really didn't pay attention. He said, did you look at these? And I looked at them, and they drove me down this rabbit hole. It was a very interesting rabbit hole. I think it's a very succinct rabbit hole. And I know maybe people don't even care. They just want to say Tua sucks or Tua's the greatest or whatever. But I've put together something I haven't seen, and I think it is going to be very clear if you're into truth, okay? Into reality. And it's why we're doing this thing that we're doing here. Why the fast throw? And it's going to point to some stuff that I've been talking about. Okay, I'm going to cover this in a deeper level tonight on the live, 9 p.m. Central Time, whatever I'm at. Eastern Standard Time, 10 o'clock. I'm going to do it on the live tonight. A bunch of guys coming on. We're going to talk about this as well as the offensive skills and the leverage they create. And it's going to tie back into what I'm doing here. We have a vision on offense. But why? It's not just that Tua could throw quick, although he does. And when you look at this, you're going to realize you can't just put any quarterback into this little system here. It's very dependent on quick throwing. So it's not an interchangeable thing. Okay, guys? So I want to give you a shout out for the likes, the subscribes, the comments, the views, coming on my live. Some of you guys even show up and show on the live itself, and we talk back and forth. I appreciate everything you guys do. So I want to give you a shout out and a shout out to Aceberg, my sponsor, because without the two of you, this show ain't going down. Ace Per Head's betting software is the premier white label platform for bookies to manage their players and grow their sportsbook operation. Click the link in the description below to get set up in minutes. Ask for the Curtis promo and get a special introductory discount. All right, so I'm going to go sort of a fast pace, but it's very clear. I don't understand how, if you're honest, you can deny these findings. Again, it doesn't point to say Tua can do it, but it shows that when something happens, you respond in a very particular way. And Brady kind of started this thing off. Tonight, I'm going to show you trends from 2016 and 2020. And you're going to see something that's all the way over here. And then starting in 2020, leading up with a bunch of guys in 22 and 23, Tua most notable, the speed of throw increase. But why? Okay? So first I want you to get to understand, because it's about context, when we go through these numbers, these 3 years of each quarterback and a whole series of elements, you have to understand, take a look at this little graphic, 2 on the top, 3 on the bottom. Understand that Tua threw the football 388 times in 2021. He had 139 pressures, 116 for Brissett, 254 total, 0 playoff games. So you got to factor that in, and it was less games than what Brady had, but still a lot. The difference, Brady, when you see his comparison below, had 360 less snaps, but only Tua had 46 less pressures. So there is a huge amount of disparity there between the number of less snaps and pressures. There should be far less pressures than that. It should be like 80 or 90. Okay, so in 2022, Tua had 400 snaps, 111 pressures, 83 for Skyler, and then 42 for Brissett, 236 total, 1 playoff game. So Tua had 410 less snaps and 64 less pressures. So again, this is not a great ratio. So 2023 had his most attempts at 609, 163 pressures, 1 playoff game. He had 190 less passing snaps than Brady, but only 3 less pressures. Now, if we go to Brady and we see a team that threw the football a ton, driving the football, they had tons of weapons. They had Evans, Gronkowski, Williams. They had a bunch of guys that are comparable to what we have here in Miami. They threw the football to win the Super Bowl 748 times. They had 185 total team pressures with 4 playoff games. Now, compare the difference between 2020 and 2021 at Tua. That's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling difference. 4 more games, and you had 70 less pressures as a team. And you threw the football a lot more. I mean, 380 for Tua. Maybe it was, 250 more for the rest of the team. Still, it's like 200 more snaps, passing snaps. And then Brady in 2021, he had injuries on his offensive line. They won the Super Bowl, and then they began to do something different, okay? So he threw it more, 810, picked up his snaps by 60s, passing attempts, 175 pressures. They dropped the pressures, 2 postseason games. In 2022, 800 passing snaps, 166 total team pressures, and 1 playoff game. So look at 2 and 23 and Brady's worst season in 22. And it is comparable, although Tua threw 190 less passes. That says not good protection. But I'm going to round it out for you. I'm going to dial it in to a very, very high level. It's not going to be debatable, okay? And it's not, again, to say Tua is the guy. It's to say this team, the Tampa, had Brady. They won the Super Bowl. They started having protection issues. And then they decided to do something philosophically. And then when McDaniel came in, he understood something and he started to do things philosophically. Not all exactly for the same reasons, because Tua throws the football faster than Brady, but you're going to see stark parallels that you can't deny. Okay? Savvy? Rendezvous? So here's the next one. I'm going to do Brady, then Tua, and then the 2 next to each other so you can see. So Brady in 2020, Super Bowl season, he had clean time to throw of 228, and 76% of his passes were clean. His depth of target was very high at 9-0. Defensive pressures were a low 23.7. His play actions was 21%. Now, maybe you don't fully get it. Play actions. I'm going to show you tonight that play actions, the main reason you do play actions is to get bodies there to create protection. Okay? And so the more bodies you get there, the more protection you have. This is a very low percentile because remember that when you run a play action, the running back and at least the tight end fakes the block and the running back fakes the handoff. They're in the box, and that means less guys in routes. Maybe only three guys, maybe two guys in routes. So it gives you less options. So the less play actions you run, the more guys you're putting in route on a consistent basis. So low percentage there in pressure. 21% play actions was very low. And then you see 21 when they start. I'm going to get to the green box next. 21, they raised the clean time to throw, but it was raised because they dropped the time to throw by 0.08 seconds. That's almost 1/10 of a second. That changes things. Guys just can't get in quick enough. So the clean time to throw rose because the time to throw dropped. Guys just couldn't get in quick enough. But notice the average depth of target dropped 1.4 yards. So they created shorter routes. They threw quicker to offset their failing protection. Now, the pressure dropped to 20.6, but that is generated through the speed of throw. I'll show that a little bit. And the play actions even dropped. So they were putting more guys in route, allowing Brady to have more choices. The more guys in route, the more you're able to go through progressions, you're able to pre-snap read, and you're able to pressure the defense and at times force the blitz. Then in 2022, when he really struggled, they upped it a little bit more, the clean time to throw, because they dropped the time to throw by 0.07 seconds. So they dropped from their championship game to 2022, they dropped it 0.15. And that speed to throw created better clean time to throw, but it also kept the pressure low. But again, they restricted the depth of the pass. They went from 7.6 yards down to 6.9. Defensive pressures dropped by 0.6%, not a lot, but then the play actions dropped along with it. So they decided to throw quicker, but they added more guys in routes. And this is the thing you could say, well, you know what? This is where the progressions, this is where the reads come into play. But everything got quicker and shorter because their protection continued to fall apart. If you remember in 2021, Brady freaked out on the sidelines because he had 11 pressures on the day. Freaked. And so you could say Tom Brady, greatest quarterback, but if you check his quarterback rating under pressure, it drops the most of any of the top quarterbacks. He is very affected by pressure, doesn't like pressure. So they mitigated it by shortening up the routes, putting more guys in routes, and quickening up the throws. Now, no play action. Remember I said the less guys' bodies out there, that means there's less blockers, and your protection has to be better with your 5 or maybe even 6 or 5.5. Sometimes a guy would chip and go. No play action. Average depth of target in 2021, 9.3, dropped to 7.9, dropped to 7.1. Pressure was getting in quicker. The raw protection of 5 guys wasn't enough, and the pressure was getting in there. Scrambles. 4 scrambles in his Super Bowl season. That's like 21 games, guys. 15.3% sack percentage, 23 sacks, time to throw with no play action, 2.32. But notice they dropped to 7.9. Scrambles go up to 10. Sacks go up to 26. Pressure goes up to 17.C. That's a sack, basic number of sacks per pressures. And then 2.27 time to throw. So it quickened up, but they were still getting the pressure in there because the unit was breaking down. But you notice, again, the play actions were low. And they said, Brady, figure it out. Go to progressions, pre-snap reads, making audibles. And then in his final year, he only had 1 postseason game, 7.1 average depth of target, no play action. Look at that. It dropped 2.2 yards from the Super Bowl year. 4 scrambles, got better than the year before. 17.4%, almost the same as the year before. 24 sacks, 26, almost the same. And it quickened up to 2.25. But look at the whole thing. They dropped everything, moved everything faster, quickened up the routes, and put more guys out there so Brady could figure it out, but it was very unsuccessful. Super Bowl, 2 playoff games, 1 wild card game, and retirement bump. So now let's look at Tua. Tua, 2021, clean time to throw, 67%, 2.18 seconds, 6.7 average depth of target, new offense being installed, defensive pressures 32.5, much higher than Brady, 42.8 play action percent. In Brady's Super Bowl year, that's double. And in his other years, it gets to almost triple. So that means 3 times less at certain points. They had more guys in routes than Tua had. Tua is very constricted. People say, well, why is he freeze? Why is he? There's 2 and 3 guys in routes. That first season, 42.8% of the time. It's crazy. Then you can see 22 stay up the clean time to throw. But amazingly, the time to throw went higher to 2.32. Average depth of target, 10.3. 10.1 was overall. And the defensive pressure was 25.7, but they upped their play action to 43.1. And this was an amazing season for depth of attack. Time to throw was, I think, about the 4th or 5th, but you remember that Tua was getting hit and getting hit hard. Some of it was about his lack of ability to handle the hit. So then they come back the next season, but remember too, there was healthy Connor, there was a healthy Hunt, and Tehran was in and out, and then you had Lamb in and out. I think it was a little bit better offensive line than the next year. 21 was the worst. But you come back at 23, you drop the time to throw by 2.23 seconds. And that slightly bumps up the clean time to throw. Only slightly, though. You go 2.3 seconds, but you only get your clean time to throw up by 1. Notice the difference with Brady, and I'll see that in a second. Average depth of target dropped a staggering 2.7 yards. Clean time on a clean time, and overall 8.12 yards overall. They shortened up the routes, and they vastly increased the time to throw, which is almost like a record. I don't think anyone's thrown it that fast. Brady had a 2.13, which was tremendous, but this beat that out. And then defensive pressures dropped a little bit, 24.9. Play actions dropped 29.4, which is still higher than anything that Brady had, but that helped a little bit with the protection. But a lot of it was generated through the quick throws, shortening of routes, and still keeping a sizable amount of play action. But when you go no play action, average depth of target, 7.7, then it went to 10, dropped down to 7.1. It was shorter than 2021. Scrambles, 11, 4, 11, back to 2021 levels. Sack to percentage, 17.4, 15 sacks, 22.4, 13 sacks, 20% pressure when there was no play action, and 23 sacks. And the time to throw was 2.45, 2.3, and 2.17. 2.17 and 20%. And this offensive line was not good. Now, if you look at Brady, you can see here that Brady and his offense decided to do the same thing the Dolphins did. The 2022 was the anomaly. It was a brilliant season. And it wasn't just all for Hill or Waddle. It has to do with his quick release, as well as the speed of throw, as well as this motion thing. But teams kind of figured out the motion thing. They were able to cap some of that stuff. And obviously, Tua took the beating. But look at all those play actions. I mean, you're talking about, like I said, 50% more and almost 60% more of where Brady would have 3 and 4 guys in routes, where Tua would have 2 and 3. And you can see the average depth of target, no play action, dropping. And that's a sign of bad offensive line play. Look at Brady, 9.3 for the Super Bowl, 7.9, 7.1 as it degraded. We had 7.7, 10, and then 7-1. And so you have to understand, Tua's got that skill to throw with anticipation and to throw with the quick release, and clearly it accentuates. Look what he was able to do in 2022 with a remotely coherent offensive line. Although he did take the beatings, it's a shame he didn't learn how to fall at that point. But it's not just that. It's a sign of the protection. The amount of play actions you use, the depth of target, and the speed of throw are used to mask a poor offensive line. And so you have to ask yourself, okay, yes, maybe Tua can't go through his progressions, but clearly you've got to also be realistic. This is not just done for that. It's done because the offensive line is garbage. Look at those defensive pressures. Those are not good compared to what Brady had. You've got a team that is demanding to throw fast for a reason. Part of it is Tua. Part of it's the bad offensive line. You can see it's a protective measure and accentuation of the skills. But you can't just put anybody in there. You've got to put a guy who can throw the football fast, who can diagnose fast, and no one out there is going to diagnose as fast as Brady. So you're going to have a guy who's going to have the clock rise. If that clock rises, what's going to happen to the quarterback? And this is how Greer, in his construction, has made this offense, and McDaniels made this offense totally dependent on the quick throw because the skimpy nature of the offensive line, total adherence to skills. Now, this is not all bad. This season, we have Jonnu Smith, we have OBJ, we have Waddle and Hill, and we have Achane, Mostert, and Wright. And the leverage created might be able to get us to that 2020 mark. But if we're stuck in that high play action, or we might not be, maybe we'll get to the 29, 25, it could be enough. But when you have no play action, will your front stand up? 2.08 on a blitz time to pressure is not a good sign. We lost Connor. We lost Hunt. This offensive line's not going to be as good as last year, which is sad to say. It's definitely not going to be good as 22. But maybe with the run game and some adjustments and the addition of OBJ and Jonnu, it can be enough to create the leverage to offset the pressure of this offensive line. I don't know. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you understand. It clearly did. There's no way you can lay everything on this kid for the fast throw because Brady did the same thing. There's no way you can say that his protection was good enough because these stats say it's not. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Curtis saying, catch you next time. Be well. Go Fins. Curtis out. Start building your own online sportsbook today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.